Hello, good afternoon. I'm Joseph Laughter, your English teacher, and in today's lesson, we would be considering the use of articles a, or, an. So, if you've ever been confused as regards which of these articles you should choose when you're making a sentence or when you're trying to express yourself, yeah, I need you to sit tight and learn how I would roll out the rules and then how you need to apply these rules in the choice of which of these articles you should use whenever you are talking, you're writing, or you're just trying to express yourself. It's quite simple, honestly, but you just need to pay attention and then you would never make that mistake again, or you'd never be confused as regards which of them you should use henceforth. So, as you can see, this is a book here. This is a goat. This is a man. This is a woman, a car, a horse. And this is an apple, an egg, an orange, an idea, an umpire, an elephant. So we'll go forward with which rule supports which of these you should use and why we specifically have used A for bird, goat, man, woman, car, horse, and why we've used an for apple, egg, orange, idea, umpire, and elephant. So sit tight and then let's continue learning together. So the first rule here, as we can see, it says use an if the word starts with a vowel letter. So that means that if the word, any word at all, begins with a vowel letter, these are your vowel letters. That's A, E, I, O, or U. Yeah. What should you use? You should use an. So 90% of time, if a word begins or starts with the vowel letter A, the vowel letter E, the vowel letter I, the vowel letter O, or U, what you should use should be an. Do you understand that, yeah? So that's why we've got an apple, an aeroplane, an expression, an elephant, an umbrella, an understanding man, an orange, an oven, an insect, an ice cream. Because all of these words all begin with vowel letters. Vowel letter A, vowel letter E, vowel letter I, vowel letter O, vowel letter U, yeah? So if the word begins or starts with a vowel letter, what you should use should be an. Please take note of that. The next one would be the rule for consonant letter, yeah? The next rule is this: use a if the word starts with a consonant letter. So that means that if the word, any word at all, begins with a consonant letter, what you should use 90% of times is A. Yeah? So, and these are the consonant letters. That's B, that's C, D, F, G, H, J, K, L, M, N, P, Q, R, S, T, V, W, X, Y, Z. So just in case you don't know what consonant letters are, these are consonant letters. So if a word begins with any of these letters, what you should use should be what? A. So that's why we've got a ball, a cat, a desk, a future, a goat, a husband, a jet, a kettle, yeah, a lion, a man, a nurse, a person, a queen, a rabbit, yeah, a snake, a table, a van, a woman, a xylophone, a yes, a zoo, yeah, as you can see, a kettle, a leg, a table, a zoo, a woman, a pencil. So if a word begins with a consonant letter, 90% of times, as I've said, you should use A. However, there are a few exceptions to these rules. So the first rule or the second rule, there are few exceptions. There's the exception of the letter H, there is the exception of the letter U, there is also the exception of the letter E and U when they come together. There is the exception of one letter O, one or two letter O's, yeah? So I'll show you the exceptions so you can know where these rules do not apply. But most times, these rules always apply, except for these exceptional cases. Yeah. So these are the exceptions to the rules I've just given you. Yeah, the first one says silent H. So now we know that letter H is a consonant letter. Yeah, we've talked about that. We've said that your letters B, C, D, H, J, K, etc. That when they begin a word, you should naturally or you should normally start that word with A, like a book. And for letter H, like a horse, like a husband, like a human. Yeah, exactly. However, there are few words, and in English, there are just few actually. In fact, aside these four, there are just a few other that are more like inflected forms of these four. Yeah, but mostly the common ones are usually these four. So all of these words have got the letter H in them, but the letter H is silent, which means you do not pronounce the sound of the letter H, and that's the. So for these words, we don't say an how, no, we say an hour. Yeah, you see, I didn't add that glottal sound or that glottal effect. I didn't add it to that. So I didn't add the H factor, yeah? Compared to when I said a house, yeah? A horse, a husband. Did you see the difference? But this one, an hour, an honor, an honest person, an heir. Sorry, that's an. Yeah, an heir, yeah? So an heir to the throne, an honor, an hour, an honest person. Yeah, so all of these, the letter H in them are treated as silent. So we do not pronounce the letter H sound in these words. So when you come across these four words, take note. It's an hour, not a hour. It's an honor, not a honor. It's an honest person, not a honest person. It's an heir, not a hair. Yeah, thank you. The next one is the word one. You could see that the word O-N-E starts with a letter O, yeah, of course. However, the word, even though it starts with a letter O, we do not pronounce it as on, rather we pronounce it as one, yeah? One. Which means that the first sound there is the W sound, that's the W sound. So, to be fair, these rules of articles, A or an, are mostly, it's better explained if I'm explaining with sounds, because it's we deal with sounds most times when we're talking about A or an. However, because not everyone understands all of the phonemes, all of the speech sounds that we've got in English, so that's why I'm in a way using letters to explain. As a matter of fact, the rules of letters apply most times except for just these exceptions, so it's still understandable if I use letters to explain that. So the word one, even though it starts with the letter O, the letter O is not pronounced. What we pronounce is the W sound, yeah? So that's why we say a one-day event, not an one-day event. You don't say, oh, because it starts with the letter O, I would say an one. No, that's wrong. Because the sound that you hear is the W sound, the letter W sound. So that's a one-day event. Do you understand that? So next time you're trying to use the word one, and then you need the article A or an before it, take note that the word one is pronounced as a one. Yeah? A one-day event. The next rule is the letters U or EU, yeah? Letters U or EU when pronounced as U. This thing that looks like a J is the Y sound, the sound the letter Y would give you in words. So U, and I've done it in brackets where you could understand what I'm trying to say. So that's like U, Y, U, U, yeah? So it is assumed that if I'm still using letter to explain to you that even though letter U is a vowel letter, However, when we pronounce it, what we hear is the y sound, which is the sound that letter Y would give you. So we assume that as though this university actually starts with the letter Y, like university. Do you understand that? So that's why we would say a university, not an university. That's why we would say a union, not an union. That's why I would say a uniform, not an uniform. You see that? It's different from when we say an understanding, because this time around the letter U is giving us on number 10, understanding. Or when we say an umbrella, yeah, it's different from these ones. So this is a university, a union, a uniform. Also the EU that we've got in European, a European person, yeah, a European. A eunuch, yeah, a eunuch. So not an European, not an eunuch, because when you pronounce them, these words, what you hear is U, like Y sound. So that U sound makes these ones, both letter U and EU, make them the U sound makes them take A instead of an. And the final exception is this: the letters F, H, L, M, N, R, S, and X when they start an abbreviation. Yeah? Now, the reason for this is quite simple, but slightly technical. It's actually not even technical at all. So now this is it. When you pronounce letter F as a letter, not when it is, not when, that's why I didn't use acronym, because most times acronyms are usually pronounced as a word. Like when I say something like, AIDS, yeah, AIDS. You see, we pronounce it as a word. We don't say AIDS. No, we say AIDS. Yeah. So, but for abbreviation, yeah, we often pronounce the letters individually. Yeah, we pronounce them individually. So that's an alphabetic way of saying acronyms. Yeah. So now we've got F. Now, when you look at the letter F, the letter H, the letter L, the letter M, the letter N, the letter R, the letter S, and the letter X, you would realize that there is a vowel letter starting each of them. If you check the topic when I did letter names, yeah, and I was writing the pronunciation of each of these letters, you would see that for letter F, what I wrote is F, yeah? So that means that the first sound that we hear is the S sound before the F sound. Don't forget, this rule only applies when we're talking about abbreviation. Please do not carry this rule into all that we've talked so far. No, this rule only applies when we talk about abbreviation, yeah? So if you say something like an LD TV, yeah, you don't say a LD, because the first sound, don't forget that the normal rule of articles A and should be dealing with sounds, not letters, yeah? So sounds is actually what guides us. I'm just using letters to teach it in a more simpler way, in a much simpler way, rather. So an LD TV, yeah? I said LD. So that air sound makes me use an and not a. An STV, yeah? I said an, because when you say S, the first sound there is a. Do you understand, yeah? So that's the rule for abbreviation when we pronounce them alphabetically, like when we pronounce them using the alphabet, using the names of the letters, when we're not pronouncing them as though they are acronyms, where we are pronouncing them as a word, like AIDS. Do you understand that? So if you're spelling the letters of an abbreviation, then you have to consider if any of the letters that starts the abbreviation falls in the category of any of F, H, L, M, N, R, S, and X. Do you understand? So what we've learned so far is the rules that guide your choice of either A or an. So like I said, if the word starts with a consonant letter, you use A. If the word starts with a vowel letter, you use an, except for these exceptions. Yeah? So I hope you've learned so much today. Thank you for watching this video. I would love you to subscribe to my channel. I'll see you some other time. Bye.